Welcome back to Desert Hustle, where we dive into real stories of grit, hustle, wins, and comebacks. Today, I'm thrilled to sit down with my good friend Tom Waldbillig, a guy who's truly lived a full spectrum life. Tom started flipping houses back in 1996, built and ran multiple businesses from apartment buildings to retirement facilities and even a dog bone distribution company. He's made over $1 million and lost it all. He's gone from living in a stunning lakefront home to sharing a tiny room in a boarding house with people he loved the most, cooking on an electric skillet and laughing through it all. He's an avid snow skier and wakeboarder. He's tangled with a black bear, pulled people from burning auto wreckages, and found deep meaning and faith in fatherhood. He's rebuilt a solid home remodel business, and he's raising a son who's already out skiing him. Tom, thanks for joining me. Let's talk about the real ups and downs of business, money, life choices, and what it all means.
All right. Hey, Adam.
Welcome to the show, man. I really appreciate it. I think the world is really hurting for mentors and guidance right now. And who better to learn from than someone who's been through it and done it? And so I just hope this video helps out the world, and I hope it's a blessing for you as well in the long run, and that people will learn from it. So, and I'm going to learn too, because I haven't, I've had modicums of success in my life, and you know my story, like crashing and burning with what I've been through in my midlife crisis. So it's great to have you here.
Well, I appreciate you wanting to do this. And, you know, my mom taught me that. My mom used to say, my mom used to teach a class, and she always said, if one person gets one thing out of the entire hour of the class, it was worth it. So worth her effort to prepare and everything like that. Even though she was preparing for 20 students, she was, even if one person just got one thing, she's like, it was always worth it. And I was like, so hey, today, maybe, hopefully one person will hear this and maybe realize that they're going to make it. And that just like digging in and digging, sometimes you got to dig deep. And I think that you're so much stronger than you think you are, and you can withstand so much more than you think you can withstand. It's like you just gotta, and I use the adage. I'm diving in here, dude. I'm diving in, but I use the adage a lot as my son was growing up, and metaphorically, that we just got to do it a drip at a time. We don't got to take the whole. You don't got to take a whole 5-gallon bucket scoop of it out of it and try to carry that. That's too hard. It's like just when you hit hard times, just deal with it and conquer it a drip at a time. You don't have to conquer the whole thing all at once. So
true. I love that's a good perspective to have. That if you can help even one person, it matters. I wanted to talk a little bit, like for people that don't know you, a little bit of an intro, like what got you into real estate back in 1996 and in your entrepreneurship lessons. Like what was some of your, like maybe your big wins or maybe your big losses back then, and some of your lessons from starting out in real estate?
We'll dive right in. So I was working on a construction crew building golf courses in southern Wisconsin, a little city called Broadhead, and I was digging trenches and installing irrigation pipe, and it was pouring rain, and it was pouring rain, and we were and the golf course had just finished. We had just finished grading on it, and we were getting ready to seed. And so I had done golf courses in Telluride and done different things, irrigation thing in Telluride for a couple of summers, and so I was like, there's no way they're going to put us on this dirt in this kind of rain. And I got like 5-10 minutes away from the golf course, and I turned around and I said, there's no way they're going to do this. I went back. This is like before cell phones and all that. And I turned around, I went back home. I called in immediately. As soon as I got home, I called into the main office. I said, hey, I'm not coming in today. It's pouring rain, blah, blah, blah. I showed up to work the next day, and this guy, Dave, and he had his name on his belt buckle, and his belt buckle was this big old cowboy belt buckle, and it said Dave on it, and he wore that every day, and so it always made me chuckle a little bit. And he pretty much fired me on the spot. That was a Tuesday morning.
Wow.
He fired me right on the spot, and I had been working for him for 6, 7, 8 months, whatever. and showed up every single day, 6 days a week, working 12-hour days, 6 days a week, because it's a, summer hustle, you got to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And he fired me. And so I went home, and at the time, my wife and I had just recently bought our first house, and it was an old Victorian in Stoughton, Wisconsin, and I'm sorry, Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, and it was like I was like I didn't know necessarily what to do with myself, and she was a nurse, RN, and had a great job, and so we were fine no matter what. But I was like, I'm just going to work on the house, and I spent 3 months working on the house. I got a job in the ski industry, which I was actively pursuing all along anyway in the wintertime seasonally as a ski school director, and I got a job as a ski school director at a ski resort about an hour away, and we decided to move. And in the 3 months time that I spent fixing up my own house, I over doubled the value of the house. We paid, I think we paid about $62,000 for the house. I put about maybe $10,000 into it, and then 3 months worth of work, and we sold it for. I think we sold the thing. I think we sold the thing for like 210
Mid
or
90s.
something like that. This is early 90s,
Wow.
and then we bought a house basically up on Lake Wisconsin, and I ended up working at this little place, Devil's Head Resort. And I'm giving you a Reader's Digest version of this.
Yeah.
And but that was my first thing where I was like, I spent 3 months working. I made over $100,000 basically in 3 months' time. And I was like, why am I working for somebody else?
Right.
Why am I making somebody else's dreams come true and going and punching a time clock every day? And I was just like, I got to do this again. And so I was running a ski school for this little resort and having a blast. Loved it. And I was like, I'm gonna go buy another house. And so I went and bought another little farmhouse and basically did the same thing. I spent 6 weeks fixing that up. And the very first people who walked in the door paid me full price for it. Literally, I did the open house myself.
Incredible.
I put up the signs. I took an ad in a little thing called the Shopper Stopper. Open house, noon to 3. Come on by. First people who walked in, full price offer. 20 minutes after I opened the door, I was like, and that was my that was my sign from the universe that it's like, okay, yeah, I think you probably ought to do more of this.
Right.
And
Oh my God. That's okay. But I do have a quick question before you go on.
Yeah.
How did that conversation go with the wifey when you came home and you're like, guess what, honey? I've got news. What is it? Dave fired me today. How did that conversation go?
I at the time, I think we were still like, to her credit, I think we were still so in love with each other that it didn't matter. And she knew that I was chasing the ski industry thing, even though, we had come back to Wisconsin begrudgingly, to a certain extent on my part. We had lived in Telluride, Colorado, just outside of Telluride, Colorado, for a couple of years. She was a nurse. I was working in the ski industry, doing different jobs for different properties and things. But my end goal was to become a public relations, marketing director, and then also or a ski school manager, ski school supervisor, director, somewhere in a resort type of environment, a ski resort. And so I went to school and went to college, got a recreation resource management degree, had a focus in sport
Nice.
resort. And so that was what I was chasing all along. And a job opportunity. We were living in Telluride for a couple of years. We moved up to Salt Lake City. I got a job with the U.S. ski team, doing communications, public relations, and fundraising for Lillehammer, and just had great success at that, and really enjoyed that actually, working for the U.S. ski team, and learned so much from that. experience. And then I was working at Snowbird at the time in their ski school. And, she knew I was chasing that. And I had just gotten a job with the public relations department. I was the assistant manager of public relations for Snowbird during the day, working for the U.S. ski team at night. And then Dina, my wife at the time, got a job back in Wisconsin, and it was just too good to turn down. She was running a home healthcare agency, and she was director of a home healthcare agency, and it was just like, we were young kids, and it was like, just trying to move up the ladder, so to speak. And that's so we moved back to Wisconsin, which is where we were both from originally, anyway. So it was logical to a certain extent, but begrudgingly, because I had just landed a medium, middle management job at Snowbird, and was enjoying working at the U.S. ski team in the communications department. And she knew that me doing irrigation on a golf course was just a summertime gig to get me through until the winter season started. And then once I got into the bigger resorts in the Midwest, that things would open up, and they did. I worked year round, and then did the real estate thing part time, and worked year round at Devil's Head, just outside of Madison, Merrimack, Wisconsin. And beautiful little resort. Golf in the summer and skiing in the winter time. But a small awesome Midwest resort we have in the Rockies here. But
that sounds awesome. So that's a good example of one door closing and another one opening, and then you just didn't waste any time because you were fixing up your own property. So an average person might lose a job and just sit around and watch TV or watch the game or something, and then you don't have anything to show for yourself. But if you're fixing up, improving a home, and then you're selling it for nearly double, I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah, the day I got fired, I literally, I did not waste any time. I started working on my house that day. I got home, fired me. I literally started all right, well, we're going to fix this bathroom. And I started demoing the old bathroom and putting it back together again. And, we basically we made a bathroom, or attached a bathroom to the master bedroom to make it so more of a master suite. It was one of the first little things we did. And, refinished floors, painted things, and, fenced the yard, did a lot of landscaping things. We painted the outside of the house. There was all kinds of things we did. Most of it, everything, no additions or anything like that, but just all inside the footprint types of things. So, and that was where my skill set was. I didn't have the skills at that time to do anything much more than that. So and use that as a learning experience, and use the first, I'd say every house that I've done, that I've flipped, I've learned something on. And I liked, and we talked prior to this a little bit, but you never learn anything from your successes, but you learn everything from your failures.
So true.
And and I think that it's so important, and not everybody can deal with failure very well. And I think that I was blessed with determination and maybe the stupidity where I never really, if somebody told me I couldn't do something, I was just kind of like, well, yes, I can.
Yeah.
And I will. And big examples of that, buying a house and going in and tearing it apart and then putting it back together and selling it successfully. That's a big example, but a small example. There was a house one time that I did in Merrimack. It was in Merrimack, and it was on Lake Wisconsin. And we were opening up we wanted to open up a living room, make it into a great room first floor concept, but there was a wall in the way, and it was a load bearing wall, and we needed to put a header beam in there, and I wanted the ceiling to be flat instead of having a header in the way. And so I basically was able to put in temporary walls to support everything, and then I had to put in a steel beam, and it was a 22-foot long steel beam that weighed about 25 26 pounds per foot. And the steel company delivered it to the road, which was about 75 80 feet away from the inside of the house. And I didn't have anybody helping me. I was doing everything by myself. And so I had to get this steel beam into the house, first of all, somehow. And the thing weighed like, whatever, 600 and some odd pounds or whatever it
On a
weighed.
skateboard, or like, what did you?
You know what is really funny? There was a skateboard involved in this thing at some point. It was a homemade skateboard that I had made in industrial arts in like seventh grade. So
You
it's
know
so
why
funny that
I said that? I had to move furniture the other day in one of my rentals, and I was all alone. I'm like, wait, I've got a longboard I could pull out of storage, and that would do this perfectly down the hall.
perfect. Yeah, exactly. And,
Yeah.
and there was a skateboard involved in a part of it. The thing that I used that was the thing that I came up with, and was there was a closet rod in one of the closets, and I took the closet rod down. It was a wood closet rod. It was round, and I cut it up into pieces. And so I had about six pieces of it, and I laid that. I got one end of it up. I was able to lift up one end of the beam and put the closet rod on the ground underneath it, so it would roll on it. And then I just kept like
Yep.
leapfrogging closet rods as I would roll off of it on the back side. I'd bring it up
Oh
to the
yeah.
front, and I just kept rolling it, and then rolled it through the house. And then I had to lift it. I had to lift it up into the attic and put hangers, joist hangers on and things like
Oh
that for the
yeah.
rafters. But it took me by myself about a day and a half to do all of this, and using a come along, and I had to build an apparatus to connect the come along to, and attach the cable to the beam, and lifted it up and got it into one pocket and swung it into
Wow.
the other pocket. But it literally took me like a day and a half by myself to do all that. But at one point the beam fell,
Ooh.
and I had to start all over again, and damaged a wall and things like that. And but I learned from that. And every mistake I made, I learned something from. Um, and I think that's a really important thing about having grit. And you mentioned grit, and grit and determination, and not and never giving up on something, even when you fail. You're just one step closer to figuring something out. Every failure is like, okay, I learned something from that,
Yeah, and
in my
also
opinion.
you kind of like become a bit of a MacGyver, it sounds like. Like I mentioned skateboard because the other day I moved an odd shaped desk, and like a dolly wouldn't work with this desk to get through the doorways, but the skateboard did. And I remember another time I had a leak. There was a cracked drain pipe under a sink, and I was like, I don't have the right size pipe in storage. The lumber store is closing in 5 minutes, and I have guests checking in pretty soon. I got to MacGyver this now, or I risk canceling on it. So I was like, what else is this shape? Like, okay, toilet paper tube, no. Oh yeah, the vacuum wand. My Shark Navigator vacuum wand. I had spare parts because the vacuums break every so often, so I saved the old parts for interchangeable parts. And I always buy the same vacuum machine unit. So I hacksawed the wand, and then it fit perfectly with some ABS cement. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it's not that hard if you just think creatively. So
And that's it right there. I mean, like being a little bit of a MacGyver, and in real estate and flipping houses, it's like sometimes you got to MacGyver something, and put it together, and you got to be creative and solve things, especially when you're by yourself and doing things on your own. And then as you get more skills and more talents, and develop more talents, you get better at anticipating needs of things, and you create, and then you have spare parts around for things like your sink thing. Like I almost always have an extra sink trap laying around in my plumbing supplies somewhere, because I know I'm probably going to need it. Now, do I keep 10 of them around? No. Do I keep one or two around? Yeah, all the time. It's like you learn the things that are become things become common. Edward Deming was a management guru who worked for the United States government and helped to rebuild Japan after the atomic bombs were dropped. And he one of his mantras, or one of his teachings that he had, was, there are common cause problems and there are special cause problems. And a common cause problem is a problem that is a solution for everyone. When you have there's a solution that will apply to nearly everyone. And a special cause problem is something that's unique to one individual. So, a common cause problem is vitamin C for treating a cold, or orange juice and warm soup for treating a cold. But then there's that person who might be a little bit more unique, where they have a more serious illness, and they need special treatment. They need a special cause. It's a special cause problem because somebody has something catastrophic, like a cancer or something like that. So that treatment becomes much more individualized. But I can put out a remedy for millions of people for a cold, because everybody catches a cold. But I need to treat the person that has cancer maybe much more on an individual level. Obviously, I'm oversimplifying it, because we've simplified even cancer treatments to these days. But hopefully, you get the gist of what I'm thinking about there. But
Totally. I have a heavy question for you. So you
sure.
mentioned on their phone call, because I called, we talked about a month ago, and you actually gave me some inspiration because I was going through a rough time and kind of lamenting. And you mentioned at one point you had made $1 million and then went through a process of losing it all. Can you walk us through what that cycle looked like, including how you built the wealth, what led to the loss, and the mindset shift that helped you get back up?
I had some pretty decent success in real estate. I had flipped several single family homes, and my realtor brought me an investment opportunity in an apartment building, and it was a 52 unit apartment building. And we were able to work it out where I was able to get the financing for the building, and the building was, I don't remember exactly, don't quote me on the numbers, but it was a 52 unit apartment building. I want to say it was like 1.6, 1.5, 1.4, something like that. And and we bought it. We ended up getting a little bit of financing help from the seller. Gave us a note, like a 3-year note, and we had every intention of paying it back. And about a month after I bought that and closed on it, and I was enjoying running the building, and was going in and doing all the little repairs, and vacuuming the hallways, and cleaning things and fixing toilets, and just basically running a small business, small apartment building, and still having a construction business on the side and doing remodeling, and was starting to dive into some property management things. Anyway, about a month after I bought the place, my realtor came to me, and he's like, "I got somebody that wants to look at your building." And I go, "Well, we just bought it, Russell." And he's like, "Well, this guy is interested in it, and I know you're flipping things, so it's like, can I show it to him and at least see what he thinks?" And I was like, "Sure." Well, the guy came along and offered me almost a $500,000 more than I had paid for it a month prior.
Wow.
Literally, like 5 weeks, 6
Isn't that,
weeks.
isn't that like a dream come true for a real estate owner?
Right. And I do remember these numbers. It was $472,000 more than I had paid for it a month earlier. And he wrote the contract that he was willing to pay the commission, because it was a single party listing, because my realtor was going to handle both sides of it. And so my realtor agreed to take a discount on a commission. And so we did the deal. Well, then I was in a situation where I had a pretty big capital gain, and I had to reinvest that. And my realtor brought me a nursing home. And I looked at we looked at a bunch of properties. We looked at apartment buildings and different things. And at the time I was still happily married, and the nursing home made sense. She was an RN. I understood the property repair, property maintenance, management end of things, because that was what I had been doing at that point for a few years. And so we pulled the trigger and ended up doing this nursing home thing. And on paper, it looked amazing. and we thought it was amazing. It turned into a catastrophe, literally, and it was supposed to net us, like $170,000 a year. It was a 40-unit nursing home. It was technically a CBRF, community-based residential facility, and we were a memory care CBRF, 40 units, three different locations. So there was two 16 units and an 8 unit in three different cities in southern Wisconsin, south central Wisconsin. While we were in escrow, and I had arranged the financing, and we got approved. It was like a $2.8 million purchase, and we had pretty much all the downstroke saved for about $100,000. Which again, I went to the seller and asked him. I said, I need another 100K to be able to buy all three. Otherwise, I can only buy two of them. And they were listed as three separate properties or as a group, for a price. And I was like, I'm 100K short of being able to purchase all three. If you can give me the financing, give me a 5-year balloon, I can do all three. And he agreed to it. So that gave me a lot of confidence that he had confidence in the property being successful and working, from a cash flow standpoint. And so we went ahead and went forward with it. And while we were in escrow, we set up a meet and greet type of thing so that I could meet all the residents and their families. And this is probably about 10 days before we were set to close. And we we went and looked at the first facility, and it was a 16 unit, and there were only, I don't remember the exact numbers, but there was like only 8 people there.
Hmm.
But when we looked at it originally, there had been, I think there had been 16. And basically, when we looked at the whole property as a group, 40 unit, when we entered escrow, the occupancy was like 38, with the promise that there were two prospects coming in. And so we made our offer based on that occupancy, and we structured our financing based on that vacancy rate, um, which is important, really important. And so we did the meet and greet on the first unit, and the occupancy was low, and I was just like, well, I hope the other two properties are okay. So we went to the next property that same night, and again, the occupancy was down. So now I'm looking at I'm down, 8, 9. I'm down 10 residents, and I've only looked at the first two properties. I've only visited the first two properties. So now I'm starting to have a little uneasy feeling, and I'm like, We go to the third property, and occupancy again in that unit is down. So when he was the seller was attempting to close on the property with an occupancy of about 26 instead of 38. And I called up my realtor that next morning, and I called up my banker, and I kind of expressed a huge concern with the occupancy rate, and that, I was going to have to feed this thing in order to be able to pay the mortgage from day one, that this didn't work. And so we did an amendment and required the sellers to not only provide a second mortgage, but also guarantee occupancy up to a certain level, where they would have to be kicking cash back to it until the occupancy got back up. And I remember going to my banker and being like, this is not good. This is like, we entered escrow, and I used the analogy of a bicycle. Sorry, this might get a little graphic, but I was like, when we entered into a contract to buy this bicycle with a set of handlebars, two wheels, a frame, a chain,
And a seat.
pedals, and even a little seat and a little bell on the handlebar. I mean, this thing was the package. It was supposed to be great. And I go, this guy's trying to sell us a bicycle that is missing a front spoke, or missing a front wheel, missing a handlebar, and there's no seat. And they're asking me to sit on it. And I'm like, no, this is not good. And my banker was so funny, because at the time he was like, No, we can work this out. We can work this out. We can work this out. Don't worry about it. It'll work. There's so many great properties like this, and they're working great. And he's like, you'll get the occupancy back up. We'll help you. Da, 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 da. And anyway, we pushed back the closing date because we renegotiated the contract. We entered the contract. We closed, and and within the nightmare just exploded from there. Um, we're literally 3 days after buying this thing. My wife is in tears, sobbing, on my shoulder, so to speak. I'm consoling her. She's like, we've been working our tail off, working, you've been working days and nights. I've been working days, and we're going to lose everything here. And, and come to find out, we went into it, we were adults. We went into it eyes wide open. And I personally take responsibility for us moving forward because I went to the banker, I went to the realtor and said, I want out. I don't want to do this. This is a bad deal.
Mm.
And I let them talk us into it, let them talk me into it. And I talked my wife into it. And in the end, it ultimately ended up being a huge contributor to the end of my marriage.
Mm.
Huge contribution to the end of my marriage. There were other things, but that was definitely a big part of it. Hindsight, as we were going through it, we were hitting our first payroll, and I was doing everything legit. I had put in estimated taxes, or quarterly taxes as a corporation. I had paid in workman's compensation estimates, where you're required, which you're required to do. And we hit our first payroll, and then I extrapolated out the payroll, and we were about $110,000 higher on our payroll estimates after our first payroll than what the owner had represented on his Schedule Cs, which is a tax form disclosing cash flow of a business. For lack of I'm really oversimplifying that, but there's Schedule C, Schedule K. They're different documents that the sellers have to provide you when you're buying a business like this. Anyway,
So did you suspect he fudged the numbers? There was like material misrepresentation, perhaps?
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Oh,
We
jeez.
and he provided tax documents, federal and state tax documents, to us as a part of the package, the marketing package, for us to decide whether or not the property worked. And it showed income and expenses, and payroll was a line item on the expenses. Workman's comp was a line item as one of the expenses. Insurance was one of the line items as expenses. Food and bill and utilities and trash and everything. And so come to find out, we get into our first 10 days and we're hitting our payroll, and there are still like 3 of his relatives are employees, and we're taking on all the employees. And fortunately, no one quit with the transition to a new owner, which I was very grateful for at the time. But it turns out that 3, 4 of the employees were family members of his, relatives, not immediate family, but relatives of his and of the sellers. And 2 of them were on disability, and he was paying them cash under the table instead of putting them on a W-2. And I had everybody on a W-2. So when somebody was hitting 41 hours a week, that 1 hour was overtime. When somebody, every hour after 40 hours a week was overtime. And I paid it as you're supposed to.
Right.
And those are the types of calculations that ended up putting us over. And obviously you could hire another person and avoid the overtime and that, but it still was, he was paying people cash under the table while people were receiving disability benefits from the government. And so, he didn't represent any of that to us at all.
Oh,
And so that put us upside down on payroll, but it also meant that we had miscalculated our workman's compensation estimates. So now I have misrepresented my calculations to workman's comp, and I'm short. So because I'm short, there's a penalty and a fine for that. So I'm paying the penalties and the fines. I'm automatically on the hook for those penalties and fines immediately.
Mm.
And so I'm 10 days in and I'm short on my payroll by $110,000 a year, which
Mm.
meant almost all of our profit that Dina and I were supposed to take as income as owners was gone, like instantly.
Mm-hmm.
And and then I was short on workman's comp insurance, so I was contributing too little to that. I had paid too little into that, into the quarterly estimates, and so it just mushroomed from there.
Yeah.
Um,
Sounds like a
we
nightmare.
it was a nightmare, and then the laws are, and this is, you know you know you I said earlier, you learn from your mistakes, and boy did I learn. I
Yeah.
learned a lot. I ended up running this nursing home essentially by myself.
Oh,
My wife and I separated and divorced 6 weeks, 7 weeks after we purchased the nursing home, the
wow.
CBRF, and and as referenced in the intro, I went and lived in a boarding house, in a one-room boarding house, shared a bathroom with six other people.
So it was
And
at this time you had to downgrade your personal living situation because you're going through divorce. So now you're running you're running the CBRF and you've downgraded to living in a boarding house to save on your own
correct,
personal. Wow.
correct, and
Oh, this is
and
where I would be having suicidal ideations if this was me.
oh yeah, yeah. So, I mean, and so, whew, I probably should have been. If I was a normal human being, I probably should have been having suicidal moments, but I wasn't yet. But it came later. But I didn't have them yet.
Wow.
Um, and and yeah, I won't go into a whole lot of details, but suffice to say, so we're 3 months. I'm running the place by myself. We're 3 months into it, and we get a mandatory Bureau of Quality Assurance inspection. And Bureau of Quality Assurance comes in and they're inspecting our record keeping. And we are a memory care, primarily a memory care facility, but we are distributing Schedule II narcotics to the residents for pain and psychosis and different things like that. And the Bureau of Quality Assurance goes through and they find a record of one of the patients where we didn't document the administration of a Schedule II narcotic. Well, you're not allowed to do that. And that is a penalty, that's a fine and a penalty. And the first offense, you get a slap on the wrist. The second offense is, I don't remember what the fine was exactly. It was $700 or $800 or something like that. Well, the third offense is $2,500.
Mm.
The fourth offense is $3,500, and it just keeps going from there.
Mm.
And once the quality assurance inspectors find one offense, it allows them to go into every single record on the property. It and it didn't matter when I purchased the property. The look back period for the Bureau of Quality Assurance was 7 years.
Oh, and nobody tells you this when you're just talking to your realtor and your banker.
No, they didn't.
Oh,
So these are the mistakes that had I gone to a business consultant, a nursing home consultant, a lawyer that specialized in nursing homes, they might have been able to, and I would have hoped that they would have said, well, hey, you probably should get a do not compete, because the residents that were not in our property during escrow were in. I found out the guy who I bought the thing from had opened another nursing home, another CBRF in a neighboring county, and he just moved the residents into that nursing home. So, and
that's
filled
why
his.
your numbers weren't quite the same as when you first looked at it. He basically stole from you.
he took, while we were in escrow, he took residents and moved them to his other property that he and his wife were keeping. And I'm like, and you know, I found that out after the fact, whatever. But so now I've got Bureau of Quality Assurance visiting all of our facilities, and they look back 7 years. Well, I had over $75,000 in fines for lack of documenting narcotic just administration, you know, where the staff had not documented that they had given a Schedule II narcotic to a patient, to a resident. And the Bureau of Quality Assurance looked back and they went way back, and it was over $75,000 in fines 3 months into the thing. So now I'm not having suicidal thoughts, but I'm having bankruptcy thoughts at this point.
Or maybe
And I'm
homicidal thoughts. The guy that sold you this deal.
Well, and so, you know, and not, I mean, I'm not wired like that, but yeah,
I,
but you know, obviously I was not having a good time, and a lot of sleepless nights, and you know, I'm getting phone calls on, I'm getting phone calls every day of so and so's not coming into work, so and so can't come into work, their mother's got a hangnail and they got to stay with their mother or whatever. Can you come and work a shift? And I'm like, no. That's the manager's job. You need to find somebody else that can cover that shift. We have 25 employees, and people can go from facility to facility. We're all one corporation. Is like, so you can bring somebody from another facility up, or whatever. We have 20, what we had 25, 30 employees, something like that. So it was like, yeah, or I'm sorry, we had 41 employees total, 41. And I was like, no, you can figure it out. But I ended up going in and working graveyards, more than one time on several occasions. And during that first year, you know, there were multiple times where I was still kind of supervising a property management repair crew, very small, you know, one or two guys doing property management stuff, because I had established relationships with the realtors in town, and was still, you know, was still doing that. And these guys had a lot of autonomy and were able to work independently, and it was relatively easy to manage them. But I'd been up all day, you know, working that, and then I'm getting a call at 11:15 at night saying, "Hey, can you come to Westfield and do a graveyard because so and so can't come in and we can't find anybody?" And I'm like, so then I'm waking up at 10:30, receiving a phone call, and then driving up to Westfield, which is 50 minutes away, and working all night, and then waking up and then, you know, 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm starting my construction guys on property management things, going home, taking a nap, and going back at it in my little boarding house thing. And so you know, there were numerous events, and then I started playing the game. And I'm going to give it Reader's Digest version of this, but you know, ended up, you know, I did end up going bankrupt for about 2.8 million. I took some cash advances on credit cards. I to live. I put um, I put a lot of the bills of the nursing homes on a group of credit cards, and then was only making minimum payments for almost 5 years,
hmm.
4 years basically, until it reached a point where I was like, okay, bankruptcy's coming. I stopped making payments. I played the bankruptcy game, and and uh, and basically, you know, went bankrupt on all the credit card bills and the mortgages on two of the properties. And we ended up doing REO sales, which is
Real estate owned
short
by the
sale.
bank. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and we did REO sales on two of them. It was really funny. The guy who I bought the thing from, his lawyer ended up buying one of the properties, and I don't know whatever ended up happening to it. I believe he ended up being able to turn it around, and I'm sure with the other guy's help and repopulating it and that kind of thing. But we sold it at a discount with the bank's cooperation and agreement. But then, so I was declaring bankruptcy, and I knew it. I had done some bankruptcy planning up to that point, and I had one of the properties in Randolph. God bless them. Juanita was my manager there. God bless this woman. And I don't know if she's still alive or not. I haven't kept in touch with her, but and she ran a tight ship, and we never had a fine there, and we never had an issue there. She always handled all the employment things. She loved the residents. She loved the people, and everybody that was there was a local Randolph person, so she knew them. And she was just a lovely woman, and she saved. I gotta. There's a lot of people that I give credit for having had saved my life and they didn't owe me anything, but she's one of them. And she ran this building beautifully and this property beautifully, and um, we were able to sell that one, and I knew I was going to be declaring bankruptcy. I knew I was only going to be able to pay off the original mortgage on what I owed on that property and not come away with any kind of a profit. But I went to the people who were buying it, and it was a young couple, and it was a legitimate business, and I sold it to them with all of the warnings and protection that I didn't get, so that they knew exactly what they were getting into, and that I wanted them to be successful. I had nothing but genuine, heartfelt authenticity that I want these kids to succeed. I don't want them to experience the same thing that I just did over the last 4 years. So, but in my bankruptcy planning, I learned that a note is not an asset until it's cashed. And I knew I was going to be declaring bankruptcy. And so I went to them and I explained to them what was happening. I was very honest with them. And I said, I'm going to be declaring bankruptcy. I'm going to give you all of the downstroke that you need to buy this property from me at closing. I'll provide that. You're going to give me a note back. And it was like $65,000 or $72,000. And I said, I'm going to provide all that for you, but then you're going to give me a note, and I'm going to declare bankruptcy. And after I declare bankruptcy, I'm going to call the note. And they agreed. So that was my parachute, my safety net, my golden parachute, so to speak. And I'm living in a boarding house. I got my son, you know, every other weekend and a couple afternoons a week. I had ended up meeting another woman, and beautiful woman, still really, really good friends. We ended up dating and being together for almost 8 years, and we're still great friends. And she stuck by me through all the ugly of this CBRF, and that's like, I haven't even talked about the daily screaming fits with my ex-wife, where we're separated, filing divorce, arguing about assets, division of assets, time with my son, who's paying for what. I mean, literally every single day for 4 years, I had screaming arguments with my ex-wife, fighting over everything. And she thought the business was going to be like, was turn around and make money, or she thought I was making money at it. And I wasn't making a dime. I was like feeding myself from the little bit of construction property management stuff I was doing on the side. And I had quit claim deeded the house that she and I were in, that we had a mortgage on. I quit claim deeded that to her. And then she started making the payments on that, while I was paying for the boarding house. And because I wanted my son to have a secure place to live. And I was like, if I don't quit claim deed this to you, bankruptcy's coming. And I quit claim deeded it to her very, very early on in the process, like literally like that first 6-7 months because I had a feeling at that point already that I had a feeling I was going to have a hard time saving this thing. Anyway, she had the house, the home for my son was safe and secure. She had a great job. She went back to the hospital, got a job at the hospital when we figured out that the CBRF was not going to work out, and we separated, divorced. And I was like, you need to go back to the hospital, get your job back, like now, like call them now and see if you can start tomorrow. Like, go work, go back to work. Let me handle this, and I got us into it. I'll try to get us out, whatever. And then we ended up separating, divorcing, whatever. Anyway, so I took a note, or I took a note from this guy for, I think it was $72,000, and we went to closing, took the note. A couple weeks later, I declared bankruptcy, and And then a few months later, I called the note, and the guy was very cooperative, and transferred. I think I ended up going to him. I was like, because I appreciated what he was doing and how much he was helping me, and I think that's where the 65,000. I gave him a discount on the note. I said, if you can pay me the whole thing now, like everything right now, I'll knock it back to 65, and saved him whatever it was, the $7,000, and he agreed to that. And then I took that 65,000 bucks and I went and I found an old farmhouse in Stoughton, Wisconsin, and paid cash for it. It was an estate that had gotten left to a church, and I bought it from a church. And this is southern Wisconsin, and this old farmhouse, it had zero insulation in the attic or in the walls, nothing, like nothing. And so I bought this house, and with every single penny I had from this note, and essentially got back on my feet. I lived in the house while I remodeled it. I gutted it down to the studs. I insulated it, redid all the walls, redid all the plumbing, all the electricity. I redid everything. It was my own house, so I could do a lot of that work myself, and it was all in my wheelhouse. And this woman that I was living with at the time, and she and I decided to move in together, and I had my son part time, and some and I ended up, in the end, I ended up flipping that house and then buying another, and that just got me back. That was what got me back on my feet. Um,
Flipping seems
and
to be the operative strategy that is making you the most money, is what it sounds like.
it was really like, I mean, it was what I knew to do. It was what I
Or
knew how to do.
rehabbing, I should say rehabbing, technically.
Rehabbing, flipping, property management. It was what I knew how to do. Self-taught. And my father was a white collar business person,
Yeah.
he's not a handy guy at all. His idea of, I remember, I laugh at it now and he meant well. God, he meant well. And as do most people. But I remember he wanted me to do something for him at his house, and he wanted me to prime something. He was like everybody says you got to prime something first. And he was like, and his idea of priming something was just putting water in the paint and putting a thin coat of paint on it. And that was primer. And I go, Dad, this is going to peel in a year. He's like, I don't want to buy primer. Primer's so expensive and it's messy and blah, 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 and it smells bad. And I'm like, but Dad, I go, you need primer to make it so the paint adheres to the road. And
Yeah.
just beat down, it'll be fine. And I was like, whatever. I did what he told me to do. He was my father. I'm like,
Yep.
and he wasn't listening to me, even though I had been flipping houses and learning things. And anyway,
Yeah.
and God, if the paint didn't peel.
There you go.
So,
Okay, I have a fun
yeah, right.
question for you. You've had some pretty wild adventures. We talk about recreation now. So you've skied in powder all the way up to your neck,
Yep.
and you've done some cool wakeboarding tricks and foil boarding. You've encountered a black bear, and you were even blown out of an exploding building. So first,
Yep.
I want to hear about the explosion. What happened there, and then tell me about the black bear.
Okay. From one end to the other. But yeah, so, we said you learn a lot from your mistakes, right? Well, that was a big mistake I learned more from running and failing at the CBRF,
hmm
4 years I spent there, than any school, any book, anything I could have. There's no school on the face of the earth, I think, that could have taught me the things that I learned from the multiple failures and the multiple challenges of trying to run that business, and trying to turn it around and doing everything I could to try to do right by the residents. And that ultimately was my goal. And there's so many stories of different, just just catastrophic things that happen. People stealing from you, people stealing food from the residents, and stealing food from the facilities, and stealing belongings from the residents, and
Dishonest employees, or just people off the street coming in and stealing? Or both.
dishonest employees,
That's the
and then
worst.
and yeah, and then fines continuing to stack up because OxyContin being stolen from our med cart, and not documented as being administered to the resident, but yet the OxyContin is missing,
That
and then a
OxyContin
whole.
was really hot for a while. I actually had a friend, he OD'd on it. So that was really rough. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
OxyContin, oxycodone, whatever, all those things, and then and I'm going to digress for a minute, but I will promise I get back to your question. But living in the boarding house with six other residents and sharing a bathroom that was about the size of a dining room table with six other people, strangers, and the stories that came out of that experience, and this woman Eileen, who was a homeless person and and a ward of the county, and they housed her in this boarding house, and then another woman who was a resident and she was diabetic and had some psychosis, and she ended up going off her meds, and she ended up passing away. Both these women ended up passing away while they were living in the facility. And the one woman went into a diabetic coma, and I'm the one who called 911 and had the fire department come and helped them. The fire department broke down her door and found her in a diabetic coma, and they were not able to resuscitate her. And so those kinds of thoughts and experiences still haunt me to this day. And the PTSD, so to speak, which I guess I've never been diagnosed, whatever, but it's bound to be true, I would think anyway. But the PTSD of nonstop
Entrepreneur.
strain and
Yeah.
the emotional pull of trying to run a business and the stress of that, and knowing that it's failing for over 4 years, and going through a divorce, an angry, bitter divorce that was fraught with arguments and fighting every single day, and legal threats and lawyer threats, and just one thing after another every day, literally for 4 years, 4.5 years. Um, a woman dying in a diabetic coma, another woman, this Eileen woman, I find her dragging herself down the hallway to the bathroom from her room because she can't walk. And come to find, I called 911 for her. Ambulance comes and gets her. Son comes and visits me at the house, and thanks me for calling 911. And she ends up with severe bone cancer, and it's settled in her hip, and she ended up passing away later that week in the hospital. Thank God she got to the hospital. And then there are the incredibly beautiful memories of I was dating this woman, and essentially living with me. She's choosing to live with me in a boarding house where I don't have a kitchen. I lived there for 2.5 years, 3 years, and didn't have a kitchen. And I'm cooking on a hot plate, and I've got a futon for a bed, and my son is with us, and the three of us are sleeping in the same bed together on the nights when he spent on the weekends, every other weekend when he was with us.
Wow.
And it was, and it's some of the best memories because I'm holding at that point, I'm in love with this woman head over heels.
Mm.
She's staying with me through this ugly, ugly, ugly time in my life. And I'm laying with my back up against, I'm sleeping on my side with my back up against the wall so that those two have space to sleep on this futon. And I'm able to hold the two of them in my arms. And those are some of the best memories of my life, quite literally. Carving pumpkins on the floor
Mm.
with Luke, and roasting pumpkin seeds on a hot plate skillet,
Wow.
plug-in skillet thing on a little countertop on the desk, and blowing out Easter eggs and coloring Easter eggs, and teaching Luke how to ride a bike in the front yard, and even though it was like the worst of times, there are still some of my fondest memories, and
Mm.
realizing I was living on, 10 pairs of socks, 10 pairs of underwear, a pair of jeans, eight, 5 or 6 pairs of jeans and a dozen t-shirts. And that was my entire wardrobe. And, and, and everything was basically in a box, in a couple of milk crates underneath this countertop where, and I was, eating bagels and cream cheese every day and, whatever, but we figured it out and, and realizing how unimportant stuff was
Hmm.
because I didn't need anything more than what I had. And that became so liberating and so freeing and allowed me, and I think it allowed me the emotional space to be able to deal with all the other stuff that I was dealing with, divorce and bankruptcy coming and trying to run a business and taking graveyard shifts and, and, dealing with life. Um, the you know, the exploding building, the exploding house.
Yeah.
So mistakes are the things that you learn. You learn everything from your mistakes, and that was a mistake that I made. I got hired.
Electrical or gas?
Uh,
Sounds like gas related.
no, no, neither really. I mean, I guess you could twist it a little bit to say it was gas related, but I got hired by a guy through the real estate company that I did quite a bit of work for. He was one of the real estate agents, and he owned a rental house, two flat in Madison, Marquette Street. And y'all can look this up, September 21st, 2021. Or I'm sorry, 2010. And he hired me to refinish a bathtub. And it had a leaky faucet. And so I replaced the valve seats on the faucet and got the water to stop leaking, but it had horrible rust stains and the enamel was destroyed. And so I was spraying on a spray-on enamel, and I had fans in the window, and I ran out. I didn't have quite enough, and I went to the store and I bought another can. I came back to finish the job, and fans, in the kitchen window, out, and the bathroom was connected to the kitchen, adjacent to the kitchen. And I was spraying this last can of enamel on the tub, and it exploded, and the whole house exploded. Blew the whole house right off the foundation. Blew all the walls out. Blew all the windows out. Blew all the doors out. Blew me out. It was a balloon frame construction. I'm not going to go into any details about what balloon frame construction is. Basically, it was an old Victorian house. It was oak, dimensional plaster and lath, horsehair plaster and lath walls, and I got blown through a plaster and lath wall that was dimensional lumber, oak, into the next room, and the floors of the building were now where the ceilings should be, and walls were all blown off and askew, and some laying in the yard, and windows and whatnot. And I, burned pretty severely, second and
Ooh.
third degree burn.
Ooh.
And this is BlackBerry days. I had BlackBerry, and it
Oh yeah.
melted. The blackberries clipped to my belt. The
Oh.
BlackBerry melted to my jeans.
Oh.
My shoes melted to my feet. Uh, I I got blown up, and I remember seeing the toilet going straight up in the air behind me and flying like 20 feet into the air, literally. And I just remember like flying under it as the toilet went flying up. I was flying under it because I saw it flying up in the air, and I saw things that there was no ceiling there anymore. I'm looking into the upstairs, into the attic essentially, and seeing this toilet flying through the
Wow.
air, and I'm getting blown into the next room through this wall, and I'm obviously instantaneously in shock and burned,
Did
and
did you lose
hairs.
consciousness?
I don't recall. I don't think I did. I don't recall losing
Good.
consciousness. Who
Good.
recalls losing consciousness? right?
Because
So,
this would beg an entirely new question. Like, did you meet Jesus? Did the angels? Did you feel like an angel protecting you from sudden imminent death? Or
so I often describe it as a out of body experience, although there was never any kind of a NDE. There was never an NDE experience where I went to a light or
okay,
died or lost consciousness from that standpoint.
yeah.
But but I ended up with severe burns. 911. Fire department came and put out the fire. Ambulance came and got me, cut all my clothes off me, literally cut all my clothes off me down to my underwear. Uh, Treated me for burns in the ambulance. Pumped me for I don't know what the hell they put in me, but they put some kind of painkiller in me that just sent me loopy.
Mm.
And again, I'm out in the front. I in the shock of it. I get up and I'm essentially laying in the foyer of the house where all I literally would have had to do is stand up, turn 180 degrees and walk out where the front door used to be, and now was just a stoop and into the front yard. But being in shock, I went back through the bathroom, through the kitchen, clambering over sections of wall, pieces of flooring that were all askew because the house had just blown up. And
And
I'm
you're on
crawling through the.
and you're on fire while you're doing this, or you're melt is
I'm not aware of being on fire, but I know that I'm trying to get outside in a hurry. And my face is very, very hot. My head is very, very, very hot. And my arm is destroyed. Basically, there's, whatever. My skin is gone from my arm, and my shoes are melted to my feet, and I'm not 100% aware of all this stuff at the time because I'm just trying to get out of the house. But I'm running through the kitchen, through the living room, back out to where the foyer was, where I was, 2 seconds earlier, 3 seconds earlier, whatever. I dive out the front door, dive down the step, literally diving onto the grass in the front yard, and I'm pounding my face on the grass because my face is just burning. And there's still some dew on the grass. Why I remember that, but I do. It's a very vivid memory.
anything cold,
And
right? Anything cold at all, right?
and the grass was, stop, drop, and roll. I'm on fire. I need to get this out. And so I'm doing this whole stop, drop, and roll, and just trying to get whatever is hot into the grass. And I'm crying and screaming, and there's a trash truck in front of the house doing its rounds, and uniquely, it was a woman driving the trash truck. I remember her vividly. And her window was down, and I screamed at her, I need help. And just as I'm screaming at her, and she gives me a very angry look. So she's mad at me for inconveniencing her, and she looks angry with me. This is the expression that I interpreted on her face, and she didn't say anything to me. And I yelled a couple of times, I need help, I need help. And then these three guys came and picked me up, and they literally picked me up by my armpits, under my arms, and dragged me down the street. And these three guys had been working on a roof on a house, three doors down, three houses down. And so they were able to come down. I probably lost consciousness because these three gentlemen came down off of a roof, second story roof, Victorian house. They came down a ladder, came down to the yard where I was laying in the front yard, grabbed me, and dragged me back up to their yard. And then they were able to call 911 for me and got the ambulance and the fire department coming. Um, and then went to the emergency room and did all that, and then they got admitted into the burn unit and spent. I don't remember how many. Honestly, I don't remember how many days I spent in the burn unit. It was about 2 weeks, not quite that long, but it was,
Wow.
you know, 11, 12 days in a burn unit. Um, Doing the whole scrub and bath thing, and twice a day,
Mm.
and University of Wisconsin in Madison, and the doctor is this woman, Dr. Smith was her name, and and that probably sounds really generic, but that was her name. And this woman, and she would come in every other day or every day and check on me. And there really wasn't much more she could do. It's like she was just kind of making sure that my pain was managed, and I was on a lot of painkillers and morphine drips and things for the whole time. And and she at one point, she said to me, she's like, you don't deserve to be here. Is there's something else is looking out for you. Somebody's not done with you here yet.
Hmm.
Because, she's like, I drove by the explosion and you shouldn't be here, based on the
Wow.
condition of the house. What happened is like, and your burns are severe, but, you're remarkably lucky that you're not burned a lot worse. And she's like, after looking at the house, I would have expected a lot worse from knowing that this explosion literally originated at the tip of your finger. And I was like, and so it was very powerful uh, realization, and it has become a very powerful realization that those events, and I got sued.
By the
I blew up
homeowner.
a guy's. I blew up a man's business. I blew up a man. Thank God nobody else was in the house. Thank God.
Yeah.
I was the only one in the house, in the building. Um, and thank God, because the PTSD or the trauma of experiencing all that and everything like that. I declared bankruptcy in, whatever it was, 2000 and 2004, 2005, something like that, and did
Uh-huh.
all that. And then this happened in 2010. I
Oh,
got sued. I got sued and I lost. I don't remember what the exact dollar amount was. It was. I want to say it was like $370,000 or something like that. Three
but
hundred seventy thousand.
you were a licensed and insured contractor. Your insurance didn't help you
Uh,
with that.
we're gonna skip over that question.
Okay. Well, the
There,
the doc.
my
Sorry.
insurance. I'm gonna go off the record. Yes. My insurance agent. My insurance had lapsed, and it had only lapsed. My insurance had lapsed by about 2 weeks.
Oh,
Uh, Whew.
so that a
I don't.
second bankruptcy on the horizon then?
I did not declare bankruptcy. We figured it out on a house that was only valued at like 65,000, 68,000. I think they
Jeez.
determined the value, but they gave them $360,000. Uh, yeah. So that was also a very hard time, and and I ended up sitting through trial. It was about 6 days, 5 days, 5 days, and watching a litany, a line, a Congo line of people taking the stand, justifying the owner's position, of course, rightfully so.
And
And
your skin is still healing at this time?
well, no, this is almost 2 years later. This is in
Oh
like
yeah.
2000.
Yeah. Yeah. Court doesn't sound like fun.
The court system, and and uh, and bottom line is I lost. I'm throwing myself on the mercy of the court essentially, and being like, okay, yeah, I should have read the warning label more carefully. I should have followed some more instructions more carefully. Blah blah blah. I should have. And again, uh, life's mistakes are your biggest learning tools. Uh, and I've made. I like to tell people now, uh, sarcastically, of course, that I might be the smartest guy because I've made the most mistakes and pretty big ones. And I'm going to spin this back around to the positive side of things. intimately, closely, my family, my friends, know what I've been through, know what I've overcome, know how I've rebuilt my life. Countless numbers of people have come to me when they are going through hard times and asking me, Tom, this is happening in my life. What should I do? And and I like to and I've been blessed with these failures. And I very carefully use that phrase, those phrases. I'm wording it like that intentionally. That I've been blessed with these catastrophic failures, in that it's given me some wisdom and the ability to counsel my friends and family through challenges and trials and tribulations that they're having, and able to help them put a perspective on things and look at things from a different perspective, and to help them uh, solve their problems, hopefully without going through the same hard times that I've been through. And you know, yeah, I saw a really great clip on Instagram the other day where this girl goes to this guy and she's like, "Well, show me your boo boos," and he was like, "My, I watched my best friend get blown up by an IUD, and as he was flying through the air, only the torso of his body and his head remained, and he was screaming for me while his body, without his legs and without his arms, was hanging from a tree, and all his innards are falling out of his torso." He's like, "So don't tell me about your boo-boos. Everyone goes through hardships. My load is mine to carry, and I've dealt with it. And could not imagine the hardships that other people have gone through." And, I know two women that are very close friends of mine, dated both of them, who lost children to suicide.
Oh,
Cannot even pretend to have empathy for them and the grieving that they have to navigate for the rest of their life. And have and yet both of them have come to me in times of grief with, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? Friends have come to me, you and I have become acquaintances and friends through uh, through some things, through some challenges that you've had, and I've tried to
thank you.
be very sick and give you advice on things that I think you should do with the trials and challenges that you've had. And countless number of people have come to me like, Tom, my best friend died in an avalanche. That kind of stuff happens out here where I live now all the time. I mean, we just lost one of a very close friend, ski instructor in Aspen, and he died. He crashed into a tree and died.
Mm.
And we don't know how he did exactly, but it looks like an aortic rupture, maybe, a thing. But everyone has hardships, and it's not fair to compare one person's to another. I've been blessed with the hardships that I've had. They've allowed me to learn lessons, some very valuable lessons, and it allowed me to frame those lessons in a way that I've been able to help my friends. So, yeah, hardships are things, are
Yeah.
things that teach you a lot, and I'm grateful. And now sitting here, I'm grateful for them. And I don't look forward to the next hardship, but I know it's probably coming.
Hopefully
But I'm
not
not
too many
gonna.
more.
Well, hopefully not too many more, especially at my age now too. It's like I don't want to have too many more hardship. I don't need that. I don't want to. I'm not interested in having too many more setbacks.
Yeah.
But the bear, you mentioned the bear. We'll spin that. I was riding my motorcycle. I've had several run-ins with black bears. Fascinatingly, I was doing a laundry room. I was changing a closet for a woman up in Snowmass into a laundry room, and I was installing a P trap underneath in a crawl space underneath this closet that we were doing a stackable washer and dryer for her. And the crawl space was a dirt floor crawl space with a trap door underneath a deck.
Hmm.
And anybody that knows Colorado and Snowmass, there are a lot of bears. And and I'm working away, diligently focusing on my work, and I feel this bump on my back, and I thought this woman had come down to see what I was doing. I feel a nudge on my back, and I turn around, and I got a bear nose, literally like right. I don't know if you can see me if you're going to put my picture on here, but
What you
the bear
doing,
nose is
buddy?
on my shoulder, and I'm just like, and I'm like, hey, bear, and I yell at her. Yell at her, him, whatever. I don't know. I didn't check the gender, but I yell at this bear, and he's a little guy. He's like the size of a black lab, right? He's like 100 pounds, and he turns tail as soon as he realized that I was a human in a voice and yelling at him, and he scampered and dashed out that thing, and I'm right on his tail, so to speak, chasing after him. And then I'm like thinking like, baby bear, I better not chase the thing too hard. And sure enough, I go around the corner, and here's this big sow of a bear, like 600 pounds, and they both immediately like turn. They don't. Bears are historically afraid of humans, and yet the bears in Snowmass and Aspen are quite brazen. But they both turned and ran and walked away and went the other way, and they were fine. And that was one really fun run in with a bear. The other one was I was riding my motorcycle up the Frying Pan Road in outside of Basalt, and bear came up out of the river, and I'm on the motorcycle, and it came up, and it was running across the street. And as I swerved the motorcycle to avoid it started to run more down the street, thank God, instead of coming through me. And it ended up running right up against my leg. And in the process, I kind of gave it a little nudge kick with my leg, and it looked up at me, kind of gave me this look of, and this was a bigger bear, but still not huge, but just a nice, healthy bear, maybe, a couple 100 pounds type of thing.
Huh.
And rubbed up against my leg, and skid marks on the street from the bike where I almost crashed.
Wow.
And I got my pant leg is all dirty and muddy and wet and stuff like that. And a buddy of mine that was staying with me visiting, but he had ridden his motorcycle out also, but he had stayed at the bar, and he was finishing up dinner and drinking and hanging out with some friends, and he came up to the house, and I'm like, he's like, he saw this. He commented to me. He's like, there's a sweet skid mark and wet tracks running into it, like an animal ran up out of the river. I go, that was me. Look at my pant leg. It was a bear.
Yeah,
But
I'm gonna have to come visit Colorado one of these days, and hopefully I won't need to bring any bear spray with me. It sounds like you have good wildlife karma that the bears just kind of like the baby bear just kind of sniffed on your shoulder, and you didn't have a fight or have to fight for your life. And you already answered one of my follow-up questions. It was after that explosion event and then the ensuing lawsuit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of tapped more into your spirituality and maybe it gave you a different outlook on life. And
yeah, uh, parents both pretty devout Catholics. My mom is still a very devout Catholic. Um, I have not embraced the Catholicism so much anymore,
mhm.
and nor have I for years and years. I mean, since before college. Probably stopped embracing Catholicism, as a teenager. But I have found a spiritual guidepost through Christianity, and and I probably look at things a little bit differently than most people, in that I don't view Christianity as a religion, or I think a lot of people would look at it as a religion. I look at it as a way of life. Um, and
I
it
get
is
that.
a path. It is a path or a journey, and sometimes it's a really wide path and it's really easy to follow, and sometimes the path disappears, and you just got to keep making your way and hope that you find the path again. And different events in my life have had, there have been times where the path has been pretty wide and plain as day and looked like an interstate highway. And there have been other periods of time where the path has been very, very difficult to find. Um, The explosion. I'm somewhat active on social media, on a couple of social medias, and I almost always post on the anniversary of the accident,
Hmm.
of the explosion, and I almost always refer to it as it was my hot little love tap from God,
Hmm.
and like God was kind of tapping me on the shoulder and being like, "Hey, dude, you think you're good? You think you're strong? You think you're smart? You think you're all that? And like, guess what? And in the blink of an eye, I can change your whole life. And I will change your whole life in the blink of an eye." And I use that phrase with people all the time. When bad things happen, I was like, a friend of ours died, a good friend of ours passed away this last week, ski instructor here in Snowmass, and crashed into a tree and passed away. Two kids, girlfriend, ex-wife, countless friends, countless friends. Uh, Worked the World Cup numerous times and great skier, world class skier. Um, you know, caught an edge, hit a tree, and died. And I tell everybody, I go, bad shit happens in the blink of an eye. Bad stuff that you see coming, it's relatively easy to sidestep a lot of that stuff and come up with a solution to something. Or it happens slowly and progressively. And you can plan for that. The bankruptcy might be a good example of that. You know,
Hmm.
it was like I was able to see that coming and develop and plan and navigate through that so that I would come out on the back side of it and survive
Hmm.
and not have suicidal thoughts, not have not have thoughts of hurting somebody else, not have thoughts of blaming someone else for my mistake, and taking accountability for the things that my contributions to things, and how these failures are mine, and I want them in a way. I would I could I if I go through life without them, it'd be great. It'd be great. It'd be more than great. These are the weights that I've carried, and these are the weights that have given me the strength to carry on and to move on into tomorrow. And I go into tomorrow with a unique strength because of the weight that I've been carrying and the weight that I had to carry through these lessons and failures and things. Does that make sense?
It does.
It's like, it's like,
Beautiful. Makes
and
beautiful sense.
and I think that we spend, as human beings, we live in a linear world, and things happen one second after another, 1 minute after another, one day after another, 1 month after another, 1 year after another, and and we exist on this timeline of existence, and we have a tendency to look back on. And today we've done a lot of this, where we've looked back on things that have been hard and difficult. And it's so easy to attach a label and an identity to that and then carry that identity forward. And what we verbalize and think becomes an action, becomes who we are. And I know in my heart I don't want to be those failures, but I'm grateful for the weight that I've had to carry because it's made me strong going in. When I take my next step tomorrow, when I wake up tomorrow, I'm that much stronger and able to navigate life, navigate the advice that I might be blessed with, the opportunity to be able to give to my friends who might be going through something, because really that's why we're here. And this is all kind of centered around faith and Christianity for me,
Sure.
and my little love tap from God. And I often say, well, I think God reached down at me in that moment and scooped me up and threw me through this burning inferno, and was like, I'm gonna make it so that you always remember me and remember this moment and remember who's in control and who has the plan and whose plan you need to follow.
Mhm.
And it's not yours. It's
And
mine.
I love it. And
And
you had Dr. Smith kind of confirmed that when she said, God's got you around for a reason, right?
yeah, yeah. And obviously she was being anecdotal to a certain extent, but not, you know. And I think God scooped me up and kind of was like, I'm not done with you yet, and in spite of that, I've still gone through things where I've resisted that because I've wanted things a certain way, or I thought things were going to go a certain way and they haven't.
Hmm.
And you're gonna put this all over YouTube or whatever, and people are gonna see it, and I'm just gonna be like, and I'm just gonna own it. I was in a relationship with a woman who I absolutely adored her 3 years ago, 2.5, 3 years. Valentine's Day of 23, and we broke up on Valentine's Day of 23, and and I thought I was done. I thought this was the one, and she ended up meeting somebody else, didn't put up appropriate boundaries, and we had arguments and
Mm.
yada yada yada. We ended up breaking up, and she decided that her friendship with this gentleman was more important to her than her relationship with me, and she made and I gave her an ultimatum for sure. I was just like, if you're going to conduct yourself, behave in such a way that he feels that it's appropriate for him to ask you on dates, and you're not letting him know, putting up a clear boundary
Hmm.
that it's okay that you're in a committed relationship, then maybe you shouldn't be in a committed relationship. And she decided to not be in a committed relationship anymore because that she needed that affirmation, that attention, that thing in her life. And she had that, she's been living like that her whole life. So being in a committed relationship was a relatively unique new experience for her. It's not something that she had done a lot of, I don't think, and so it was fraught with its own challenges for her. And I think we both kind of came to that realization,
And on a
and with a great.
February, sorry to interrupt you, but on a February 14th, so you ate the box of chocolates by yourself?
Yeah, I didn't eat the box of chocolates, but the flowers kind of sat on the table for a long time,
Oh,
and
I know this
and
feeling. Believe it
the
or not, I know
Valentine's
this feeling.
Yeah, the Valentine's flowers that I brought her home that night kind of sat on the table for a long time, and died and withered up, and I finally threw them away. And it's been 3 years, and there's still not a single day that goes by that I don't miss her and miss what we were building, what I thought we were building together. And there's not a day that goes by where I don't miss that. And and yet and yet I try to sit, and I do sit in a place where I can still, and I know there's probably a little bit askew of the faith question, spirituality question, but I feel like it's very contributing to it, in that I can still love her, but I need to do it from this remote location. And I can still have these feelings of love for her and wish for her that she would find the happiness and the peace. Not maybe not even happiness necessarily, but just the peace that she was looking for, and get the fulfillment that she needs, or to fulfill her soul and her heart with peace. That if it wasn't enough to have it just with me, that she needed it from other people. And I don't want to paint, and I'm not painting a picture of her being, floozy or sleeping around or anything like that, because I really, honestly, in my heart of hearts, don't believe that about her. I feel like I knew her really, really well. The love that I had for her and the wish that I had for us in my heart, and I don't necessarily have to let that go. I need to compartmentalize it for my own health, emotional health. I need to compartmentalize it and put it in its own silo and put it where it belongs, and not let it ruminate in my life, so that I can move on. and that ability to love someone even when they don't choose you, because you just genuinely, really authentically want the best for them, even though you have to love them from somewhere else. And they don't necessarily, and having to grieve the death of sorts. And I very much look at it that way because it very much feels like a grieving. And grief, I define as it's love with nowhere to go. It's where love goes when you can't give it to the person who you want to give it to. When someone dies and they pass away and we grieve them, we grieve a pet, whatever. That grief and grief is a different for everyone. But it is and it's completely different for everyone. There's no book, there's no instruction book on grieving. Everybody has to experience it and navigate it on their own. It's not something you heal from or get over. It's something you cope with, and you navigate through life with it. You carry it with you. But grief is the love that you never got to give to that person. It's all this leftover love that you would have spilled all over them, uh, without any expectation of receiving anything in return. Um,
I like the way you said it a minute ago. It's love with nowhere to go. That's a really
yeah,
poetic explanation of the concept of grief. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
it's
I
just
can kind of relate. I went through my own breakup 5 years ago, and so she was my business partner here at the property. She was my romantic partner and my best friend. And so I kind of lost three entities in one when we had a mutual breakup. And the crazy thing about that was she went and took a hotel in Page for 2 nights, hoping I would come to my senses and call and apologize and say, let's just stay together. So she waited 2 days, and this was November of 2020, first week of November. And I was solid as a rock for 2 days. Oh, I got money. I got my business. My bills are paid. I still got pretty good looks. I got most of my teeth in my mouth. I'll have no trouble finding a new woman. And after 2 days, on the third morning, I woke up and I broke down. I'm like, what did I just do? And I called her, and she's like, "No, I'm on the road home back to Georgia, and you didn't know this, but I was waiting in Page for 2 days to see if you would call me." And it's for some reason that morning I cried like a baby. And then because like she made like a decision to just to give up, and somehow that spiritually hit me 17 miles away, and I felt it. I knew something like it was irreconcilable. And so I've gone through a process of feeling the missing component for about 5 years, and it gets a little easier every year. But there's still a day I'll wake up and the first words out of my mouth are, "I miss so and so," and then I'll pep talk myself. I'm like, "Get over it. Don't be a crybaby." And I hear you, man.
yeah. No, I completely 100% empathize with you on that. Where it's the death of a relationship. It's the death of somebody you loved. And it's not the person. The person didn't die, but all the expectations and all of the dreams and never got to be fulfilled, and that's a death of and it's a death of something. And I very much, when she and I when the woman that I was with and I broke up, ultimately the evening that we broke up, and long fight all the way, argument, discussion, whatever you want to call it, till 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning.
Oh boy.
And and I'll never, and it'll haunt me forever. She got up off the end of the bed, and then she hasn't talked to me since. And in a moment, the day before, we were everything was just 100% perfect and
Yeah.
fine,
Yeah.
or so to speak, from my perspective anyway. I thought it was. Um,
And that
and
raises, sorry, that raises an interesting question. Like, if for someone to still be alive and you know they're out there, but they won't talk to you. So it's like they're dead to you spiritually or relationship wise. Is it more painful if they were just physically dead, where you could never talk to them again, or is it more painful if they're alive and they won't? Because I have like two half brothers that I don't know, and I have one biological brother that I don't know at all, and they won't talk to our family anymore. And so I'm just like, I don't know. I try not to think about it, but it's kind of a weird thing, you know?
I, I have a very defined opinion about this because I've thought about this. It's easier if someone dies. It's easier
Yeah,
if someone dies.
I think so.
If someone dies, so when Rohan died a week ago skiing, and I sent a message to two of my friends, his roommates, two of his roommates that are close friends of mine, and I said, how did I put it? I put it something that I'm going to paraphrase again, but I said, the day we meet God might be the greatest day of our life. Um, and so if we can think about our friends that have passed away and died in that kind of a perspective and framework, that they are in this ultimate place and have met the creator of the universe, so to speak, or whatever.
Hmm.
And that's different from that's. And I'm not espousing to a being that is God necessarily, because I'm still sitting here you know, similar story as yours, with a breakup of a girl that, with a girl that I adored and loved. Um, I'm mad at God. I'm still mad at God for that. I'm still sorting through that. That's, and the path has gotten very narrow and difficult to follow
Hmm.
because of that. And and yet so much of the things that I am digesting, intellectually, the last year and a half, are thick with spirituality and coping and grieving, and and all of those things have contributed to healing and me being able to form a different framework and a different perspective on a lot of things, but life and relationship, and what that, how I want to move forward as a man into my next relationship, and what, as an emotional weight of, again, the failures of something, and that is a weight, in this case an emotional weight. How is that making me stronger to step into tomorrow,
Hmm.
so that I can be so that I can be a better man, a better person, better human. um, and I use the expression that, I am participating in a daily practice of becoming the man that she needs me to be, in the hopes that that next person, that might cross my path, is that I'm better suited, better prepared to meet her where she's at, and be the best man, best human being that I can be, but that might be of the best service to her, and be what she needs in a partner and in a friend and in a lover, and
Hmm.
whatever else it looks like. So, you know, all
I
these
hear that.
experiences make us stronger, make us better. Um, Trying really, really hard to not let the failed marriage, the bankruptcies, the accidents, the lawsuits, the car accidents, the different things, trying to not let those things become the thing that defines you, that people remember about you.
Hmm.
They make your story very interesting, and maybe it makes a good book or a good movie or a good podcast thing. But but it's but those are that's the workout, that's the time in the weight room to get to become strong,
Hmm.
to become strong in faith, to become, and yet, you know You ask me
Resilient.
scriptures,
The word
and things
resilient
like
comes
that,
to
and
my
I can't.
mind. Yeah.
Resilience, grit. Grit. I love the expression. There's a cowboy expression. Boys got try. There's a lot of people and Tony Robbins and some of the other,
He was just on
people.
YouTube today. I was in the Tony Robbins YouTube seminar just today before we got on
Yeah,
the Zoom to
and
just now.
respect the hell out of guys like that. And Tony Robbins in particular is extremely inspirational and great advice in saving people's lives, man. And I know he has saved more than one person's life. And what for all of the riches and all of the wealth and all the accolades, if we started out this whole thing with that, if he saved one life, it's all worth it, right? Everything's worth it. Um, he's I and I kind of like I got distracted by where I was going with that, but it's like, you know, I'm grateful for the weight of those things, but I'm gonna let it shape me into the person that I want to be tomorrow for my friends and for the people that I work with and for my family, and that kind of thing. I don't want that to become how people know me and remember me. I want people to know me and remember me for the trajectory that that I put myself toward and the man that I want to become. It's like, well, Tom wants to be this
Hmm.
here and watch him go. It's like it's not Tom was all these mistakes and all these trials and challenges and things like that. It's like
Hmm.
that was the time in the weight room made me strong. And now I can take that strength and go forward and participate as a stronger person in life. And I hope that someone watching this gets that and can, and if they're living in a place of like, oh, I got such a shitty life because this happened to me and that happened to me and this happened to me and I can never get a break and I can never and and all of those never getting a break, all those challenges and things like that that's your training. That's your time in the weight room. That's your time on the exercise bike. That's your where you're getting more fit to be able to step into tomorrow as this incredibly beautiful, fit, strong person because you've done all that and you never have to go back to it. You can go into tomorrow as this with greater strength. Yeah.
I think you actually just answered my last question. I was going to say, looking ahead, what advice would you give someone who's hustling today, whether they're just starting out or facing a major setback or just trying to have a meaningful life? If you had like 1 minute in an elevator to give someone that 1 minute of advice, what would you say?
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. If you're passionate about something, put your blinders on and don't let anybody talk you into taking your blinders off. Put your blinders on and focus on the thing that you're passionate about and and let every single breath you take from here on out, every single step you take be toward that dream and toward that vision. If you're passionate about if you're passionate about producing music and put your blinders on and let every breath you take be going toward pursuing a career in music. If you're passionate about being an artist, let that path put your blinders on and don't let somebody talk you into being a an employee somewhere. Go and let every breath you take and everything you do be about chasing that passion of art or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. You can be a doctor, it can be I mean, it doesn't matter what the profession is or what the endeavor is. Put your blinders on and go forward with it passionately, with vigor, and don't let somebody talk you into doing something else. I remember a friend of mine back when pyramid marketing things were the big thing in Amway
I remember
and those
those
kinds of
days. Yeah,
those they're still around,
they're
they're
still
still
around.
around.
Yeah.
and they're very successful. I mean, the guy who was the owner of Amway is a ski client of mine. I'm like, grateful for him and his success, and lots of people have had great success in pyramid marketing things, and power to them. Especially if that's what you're passionate about, go for it.
But Tom,
Put
it's
your
not a
blinders.
pyramid thing, Tom. It's just friends selling to friends, Tom.
And that's fine. But I remember I was running my construction company, and this friend of mine was a roofer, and he was doing a lot of my roofs and siding jobs, and I was, flipping houses.
Hmm.
And he came to me and he's like, "Hey, a bunch of friends are coming over tonight. I got this program that I signed up for that I'm in, and I want to show it to you." And I was like, and he's a friend, work colleague, whatever. And I'm like, okay, sure, fine. And he's trying to sell me these gold bullion coins, whatever, where you invest in the gold and da 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 da. And I was just like, and then you gotta go and tell your friends and your family, be like, hey, I'm buying this gold from my buddy Mark. You want to buy gold from me? And then Mark gets a little piece, and I get a little piece, and then Mark's buddy gets a little piece, and
Yeah.
everybody, and then you go tell your friends on gold, and everybody's buying gold together, and we're all like
Yeah.
living happily ever after. And gold hits $5,100 an ounce, and yay, we're all rich. Well, and at that moment in that meeting, it dawned on me that I was passionate about flipping houses and being in real estate, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to fix houses, and I really enjoyed solving people's remodeling problems and maintenance problems, and that's what I really love to do. And I was like, if I'm doing this gold thing and trying to sell my friends on gold, then I'm taking away from my time when I could be bidding jobs and
Yeah.
doing this. This is
Blinders,
what I'm
blinders
really.
on. You love
Yeah, and so
remodeling, you love homes, you love real estate. Yeah.
I put my blinders on and I went into real estate, and I went into buying and flipping houses and fixing other people's houses, and stayed in that lane, so to speak. Um, and that was the night that where I realized, like no, if you're passionate about something and that's really where your heart is, and you know what would you do if and what would you do if you had to do it for free?
Mhm.
What would you do if nobody was going to pay you? How would you spend your time? What would you spend your time doing? And I don't mean that necessarily from a recreational standpoint, because everybody wants to spend their whole life playing. No, no,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like whatever your game of choice is, you like croquet, great. Yeah, spend your whole life playing croquet or riding horses. Yeah,
Yeah.
spend your whole life riding horses. Well, horses you might be able to turn into a career, whatever.
I mean,
But
there's a
you know what
few
I mean.
lucky kids these days playing Call of Duty on Twitch or stream or whatever, and they're getting paid hundreds of dollars a day because they're so darn good at Call of Duty. So maybe there's a few instances where
And,
you can
and
literally play.
great to talk. Thanks for everything.
You too, Tom.
And
Thanks so much.
yeah, we'll do a part two and cover the car accident and pulling a dead guy out of a car sometime.
I think we'll have to do that.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, comment below what were your big takeaways from today's video. For me, a couple of things. Number one is invest in what you know. Tom did great with rehabbing and flipping homes and apartment management, but then when he got into the nursing home, that cost him a lot of time and money and put a strain on his marriage. So investing in what you know, also putting your blinders on and staying focused on what it is you want to do. I thought that was critically important. And then persevering and not giving up even when times are tough, that really spoke to me. So comment below, what did it mean for you? And here's some wonderful footage of Tom doing something he loves at Lake Powell. And now's your time to subscribe to the channel. Just click on that subscribe button, or you could watch Tom do his foil boarding, or you could subscribe, or you could just watch Tom do foil boarding.